Norse specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. I teach at the University of Colorado Boulder, previously at UC Berkeley and UCLA. Today I'm back with another video in my series of lessons about Old Norse. Many of these are on sort of broader themes than my old numbered Old Norse lessons from 2 years ago in 2016. So they're often recapitulating points from those, but adding a lot of material too. And also, now that I'm back in Colorado and have been for more than a year, all of my videos feature these mountain backdrops, which make them a lot easier for me to look at anyway. So, one thing that I find teaching about possession and how it is indicated in Old Norse is that even people who have a genitive case in their language and use it robustly in that language, as all English speakers do, can have a hard time understanding the genitive in Old Norse and where to use it. I'm surprised by how often I see people say they want to translate something into Old Norse. It still surprises me many years later that that's a big part of why people want to learn Old Norse, but anyway. They want to translate something into Old Norse and it involves some kind of possession. Say, we're going to talk about Thorgeir's horse. All right. If you're speaking English and you have a guy named Thorgeir and he has a horse and you want to say the horse of Thorgeir, you know that you say Thorgeir's horse and you don't say Thorgeir's horses, right? Thorgeir's horse runs, if we're just talking about one horse. But in writing Old Norse, even English speakers who will do this naturally in English will still be tempted to write horse in the genitive, right? They'll write something like Thorgeir's hests hlauper, right? Runs. When, just like in English, it is only the thing or person that is actually possessing, not the possessed thing, that is in the genitive. So we have Thorgeir's hester hlauper, right? Only Thorgeir goes into the genitive and gets the genitive ending s for a masculine ostem, such as it is. Now, of course, I will point out that in most of my examples, I'm going to reverse the word order relative to English. I'm going to say hester Thorgeirs, because that is typical in Old Norse. The English order with the genitive placed first can be used. Old Norse has a very flexible word order about a lot of things, but it trends toward putting the possessor after rather than before, as it is obligatorily in English. So notice the same way that if it's the horse that's being possessed, that no matter what case horse is in, the possessor, in this case Thorgeir, in this instance Thorgeir, I should not say case, for example, in videos about mountains in Old Norse. The possessor is always going to be genitive, but the case of the horse is going to vary. So for instance, Thorun rider hesti Thorgeirs. There we see that hester is in the dative hesti because it is the object of rida, which takes a dative object, but Thorgeir goes into the genitive because it's Thorgeir's horse. So Thorin rides Thorgeir's horse. I saw Thorgeir's horse, ek saw hest Thorgeirs, right? And of course, you could have an instance where hester goes into the genitive hests, but it's not indicating possessive, till hests Thorgeirs could mean to the horse of Thorgeir if you are traveling to it or something. Such an instance would be fairly rare, but you could see something like that. Still, remember that the thing possessed is probably not going to be genitive, whereas the thing possessing is. And again, that is natural in English, right? So when would you actually use the genitive of hester, hests? Well, if the horse possesses something, right? Sodul hests hänger I sodlaburi, right? The horse's saddle, hests sodul, hangs in a saddle barn or I don't know, a stable. It's not quite stable. So keep in mind, again, word order, genitive is typically after. So van hälsa drottningar, right? The queen's ill health, with queen following ill health. Fader Volsungs, with the father of Volsung, Volsung's father, but Volsungs follows father in Old Norse. Now here's another thing I want to talk about with possession as sort of a more advanced possession topic in Old Norse, and that is the possessive pronouns. Too often, I think, people look up something like my, your, his, hers, etc. in Old Norse. They'll see the genitive form of the applicable personal pronoun, they'll see mean, thine, seen, hans, hennar, whatever, but they'll just rush off and use that without realizing that actually, typically, those genitives are not what you use with most nouns. You're going to use a possessive pronominal adjective formed from those possessive personal pronouns to indicate the possession, and it's going to agree with the thing possessed like an adjective. So if you're lucky, if you need to say hans, hennar, or thes, his, her, or its, or theira, theirs, because those don't have to inflect at all. You can use them like just typical genitives. Hester hans, hester hennar, hester thes, hester theira, doesn't matter. And notice also that those have the endings of typical genitives, s, ar, and ra. Ra being the genitive plural ending of adjectives. But if you've got min, my, thin, your, singular, or sin, his, her, its, their, own, we'll talk about the difference between that and just typical his, her, its, their in a moment. You're going to have to actually inflect that like an adjective, and it's going to look like this. I'm showing you min, so here we've got in the masculine singular min, min, mince, minum, masculine plural minir, mina, minna, minum, feminine singular min, mina, minnar, minni, feminine plural minar, minar, minna, minum, neuter plural mit, mit, mince, minu, neuter plural, that was neuter singular, min, minna, minum. Notice that the vowel is long if it is followed by only one consonant before the next vowel, but short if it is followed by two consonants. That's why you get a short I in mit, but you get a long I in minu, etc. So thin and sin will inflect the same way, and these actually have to agree with the thing possessed. So if I ride my horse, I can't just say ek rid hesti min. I actually have to say ek rid hesti minum, with my agreeing like an adjective with hester. Now let me talk real quick about the difference between saying his, her, its versus his, her, its own with this sin word. Thorun rider hesti hennar means Thorun rides her horse, but that's somebody else's horse, right? That might be Signy's horse or something. Thorun rider hesti sinum, with sinum again agreeing with hesti. Hennar doesn't have to do that. Means Thorun rides her own horse, right? That is Thorun's horse. So you see this all over Old Norse. You have to remember that typically if it is that person's own thing, we don't have to think about this in English, right? The boy kisses his mom. You know, of course that could mean somebody else's mom, but by implication it means the boy's own mom. You know, we can insert own if there's some kind of question there. But in Old Norse, you have to do this obligatorily. So you'd have to say Sjå Svein Kisti Moder Sina. Because if you say Sjå Svein Kisti Moder Hans, the boy is kissing somebody else's mom. Maybe because, you know, there's some relationship between them. Anyway. Now, other possessive personal pronouns form somewhat more typical looking adjectives, but let me give you their forms anyway. I'm talking particularly about our, vor, and your plural, y'all's, idvar. So vor, we get these forms. Masculine, vor, vorn, vors, vorum. Plural, vorir, vora, vora, vorum. Feminine, vor, vora, vorar, vori. Plural, vorar, vorar, vora, vorum. Neuter, vort, vort, vors, voru. Plural, vor, vor, vora, vorum. You also see forms that start with just the root or rather than vor if the following ending starts with a vowel and doesn't have another consonant intervening. So you'll see, for instance, orum, but you won't see vors. That's a very archaic Old Norse manuscript characteristic. And of course that or form is more strongly reminiscent of our English word our, realistically as people say it. But the vor form is what survives in all of Scandinavian starting in like the 1200s. You see that, you barely ever see the or thing even in classical Old Norse. And then yours, plural, or y'all's, that's ydvar, this is masculine, idvarn, idvars, idrum, plural, idrir, idra, idvara, idrum. And then feminine, idur, idra, idvarar, idvari, plural, idrar, idrar, idvara, idrum. Neuter, idvart, idvart, idvars, idru, and plural, idur, idur, idvara, idrum. And again, these will actually agree with the thing that is being described as our or y'all's because they are treated like adjectives. They are technically possessive pronominal adjectives. You don't use the pronoun in its unmodified genitive form. Those unmodified genitives, like just mean, theen, seen, vor, idvar, that's used basically as objects of the preposition till, which takes a genitive. So if somebody is coming to me, right, you would say till mean, right, if I am the destination of some kind of travel. But of course, if you give something to somebody, note that that's the dative, right? Han gav mer bok. You don't ever say to me in that sense in Old Norse. The recipient of something is not to that thing or person. All right, well, I hope this has been another informative or interesting, hopefully both episode in these Old Norse lessons for you. I hope that if you haven't yet, you'll consider looking at my Patreon. Those donations help me a lot, and I will be listing some of my Patreon donors at the end of this episode. And I hope also that you'll look at my translations, such as my translation of the Poetic Edda and of the Saga of the Volsungs, and my forthcoming translations of the Saga of Rolf Kraki with the Saga of Hervor and Haderach, and of the Prose Edda, as well as the audiobook, the Poetic Edda, coming in November 13th, 2018, I believe. Anyway, for now, from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.